Hey guys, what the fuck is up, you guys? My name is eManDan642 and welcome to a brand new video. This is the Games Ranked Year-End List 2025. So, I decided to do this year's list a little different, not really. So I was kind of unhappy with how last year's list turned out. I half-assed them. I didn't do the reviews, the scripts, until last minute. They were all short, they're all blunt, and a lot of entries, I kind of forgot about. So what I did this year for all these lists is after every entry, after I played a game or watched a movie, I would do the review right after. Sometimes it was immediately after finishing. Sometimes it was a couple days after. These lists are a lot longer than previous years. I think some of them have more entries than previous years, but for the most part, I have written a lot more than previous years, so yeah, that's that. This is a honorable mention to a ROM hack made by my good friend Cowquack. The only other ROM hacks I've played are also by him, and this is the only big one I've played, but I loved it. I liked the story and the themes and the absurdity of it. Each stage is unique and fun. Even the early ones are really unique. I like how as the game goes on, they get more and more insane, which is in line with the game's theme. The early ones are simple grasslands and marshes, and the later ones are extremely abstract worlds like the weird city roads that I took as inspired by Yume Nikki. My favorites being the gold-soaked sky, Violet Twilight Woods, even though this level pissed me off the most, the Far Plain, and Empyrean Abyss. The patches were a great addition too. Some I used a lot, like the Halo, Light Jump Mario, Ground Pound Ground, and the Evil Ribbons. The whole final section is so cool. Each Patchmaker boss was fun, and damn, the final boss was something. It wasn't too hard until he sent out the 4 bitches in Crushy Hand, but it was a blast. My main issue with the game are the Mario 64 controls, but as for Patchmaker issues, I think the overworld hub could have been more interesting. I like the second area and each more leading up to the courses, and I love the art pieces in the last section, but a lot of it is just big rooms. Some of the patches were like I didn't see a use for the stone or the flashlight looking one outside of their courses. This is still an amazing experience and I highly recommend it. I do kinda like the concept of taking a butterfly effect driven slasher film game, but only kinda. With a game where the goal is to keep the characters alive, they all suck. They range from being utterly insufferable to boringly average. I hated Mike and Jess and their gross sexcapade. Each line from their mouths make me want to stop playing. It didn't help that this is the most boring part of the game, with more aimless walking than any other part. Mike becoming an action hero was a good choice, and I went from hating him to not feeling anything towards him, but not minding his sections. Emily was also annoying, and I didn't like her from the beginning when she hugged Mike. The more better characters like Chris, Ash, Matt, and Sam are all fine. I didn't mind them, but I couldn't care about them. Josh was fine at first, but they actually did something with his character. Yeah, it affected the whole purpose of the events, but that really didn't matter after that. He had a few moments in the end, but that was it. Also, the flamethrower guy was much more interesting than any other character. Too bad he was killed after 5 minutes of meeting him. All the characters can die, and most of them did die, but not once did I feel like, oh, that was completely my fault that they died. It was just, really? That's it? Every time. The actual gameplay is really bad. This isn't the worst QuickTime event-focused game I've played. That'll come later. They were terrible, yes, but not the absolute worst. The rest of the game is aimless walking, and I do mean very aimless. It's just slow walking. So slow. There are some interesting locations like anything that wasn't the main cabins or the woods, but that's not much of the game. I did like the collectibles you could find. It meant very little, but it was the only tangible element of gameplay I could grasp. There is a big element of backstory here too. Is it cool? Sure it is. Did any of it matter? Not in the slightest. Sure, it gave an explanation for the Wendigo, but there was so much to find that it felt like a empty answer. Also, the ending sucked. I liked the reveal involving Heather, but the house and the light switch was a letdown. There is a lot to talk about here, so let's just talk about the good stuff first. In many ways, this game is groundbreaking, sure, with the massive numbers of options to choose from and the many endings you can get. Graphically, it's pretty damn good. I don't like how modern games insert actors as characters in games, but that's, I don't know, it's just me, I suppose. It comes off as lazy and uninspiring. I like Connor and Hank as characters fine. They're the only great characters and their chemistry was always fun. At the end of the day, this game was enjoyable and fun, though surface level and poorly written. It is still an enjoyable game for its mechanic of choice. Now for the bad stuff. I'll get the simple issue out of the way. The gameplay is terrible. I don't mind games with little gameplay. I love visual novels like Ace Attorney and Zero Escape, where it's almost all story. But what those games have, and this does not, is thought. I have to think while gathering information and playing trials in Ace Attorney. The escape rooms are big puzzles to solve in Zero Escape. All the gameplay in Detroit is walking, doing simple movements, and quick time events. Quick time events are terrible. It's the illusion of gameplay. It's not fun or challenging. It's lifeless and annoying. I would rather play the torture sequence in Metal Gear Solid 1 that almost breaks your thumb than any of this game. I get that David Cage doesn't like cutscenes, and I get that, but you don't need to do a pointless motion every 5 seconds. It's so irritating and it halts the pacing. I would rather Detroit take the Metal Gear Solid 4 approach with hour-long cutscenes. Even though that's the worst Metal Gear Solid game, the story is so much better written than this. The game even manages to fuck up simple movements. Maybe the game is genius because it does feel like you are controlling a robot in the worst possible way. Just moving from point A to B is a hassle. As ambitious as this game is, it's stretched way too thin. There isn't more story to span the many routes. The story is spread extremely thin to compensate. On the surface, the story is good and interesting, but it's nothing new. But it doesn't say anything thought-provoking, and it does not make you think. It's very black and white. I liked Connor and Hank's story, but none of it really mattered. The investigation wasn't an investigation at all. Marcus's story was cool, but it was kind of ridiculous and simple. Kara's story is heartfelt, but the twist in her story was idiotic and ruined the point of it. The game draws obvious parallels to the civil rights movements, and that's fine, but that's it. The game doesn't say anything about it. Granting robots rights is a whole nother ballpark than human rights, and the game doesn't explore that at all. The game says androids are alive and not much else. There is no discussion about it. No gray area, and not arguing when there is a lot to be considered when looking at the story. The ending of the game was a boring payoff. It played out exactly as you would expect from it. I played Connor to become a deviant. I played Marcus to lead a revolution. I played Kara to become a mother to Alice. And it all played exactly that, with that dumb Alice twist being the only thing that makes you think. Think as in question why it would be included in the first place. Sure, this game is great in concept, and if written better, it could have been amazing. I think after playing a few, the novelty of choose-your-own-adventure games wore off on me. I would rather play a game with 1 or 2 endings with an amazing story than one with 80 endings and a lacking, lazy, and underwhelming story. The game was alright though. Honestly, I don't get the point of this game at all. On its own, it's an okay story. It showed some new gameplay elements that would be used in Life is Strange 2, but I felt unfulfilled and confused, especially after playing Life is Strange 2. I didn't get the point. Yeah, Chris and Charles are interesting characters and I wanted to see more of them, but they weren't even in Life is Strange 2 that much. This was just the same thing as the first Kid Icarus game, but a little worse. I didn't really like the style of the first game, and I still don't really like it. I like the power-ups and having the abilities by the end is really cool, but that's it. What's so weird about this game is that it was only released in North America? A Japanese company releasing a North American exclusive? There's plenty of Japanese exclusives and games we don't have but Europe has, but this is unheard of. Well, mostly. It's not a bad game outright. It's fine, just not good. The only thing that was a major upgrade from the first was being able to use the power-ups in the dungeons, which was so stupid that you couldn't do it in the first game. This game is alright. I like Greek mythology and all. The main levels were okay. It was a slow start, but the game was more enjoyable as you got some upgrades. I like the first and third stages. The first and third stages were neat because they went from down to up, but the second stage was more boring and basic, only going left to right. Enemies fell from the sky and were such a pain in the ass in stage 2. Collecting power-ups like the extendo arrow, magic wand thing that made diamonds fly around you and kill enemies, and flame arrows were neat and all, but you lost them when you got to the boss stages, making them kind of pointless. The boss stages were essentially discount Zelda dungeons, but with no keys or locked doors. They were not very fun. The final section felt slow and not very fun either. Decent enough game. This was a pretty hard shooter platformer. There was a lot of 80s game bullshit. There were moments that were just testing my patience. I do like the Mega Man style of fighting, the numerous enemy stages and fighting the boss at the end of each one. Some of them were fine, but some were annoying. Some of the bosses were easy to cheese, but had so much health it was annoying. The Wily stage was alright. I didn't like fighting the yellow demon, he sucked. Also, I needed to point out how new this was for 1987. This game is non-linear, letting you pick between 6 robot masters to do in no particular order. Plus, using the new abilities on other bosses was so cool, even though I mainly used the basic arm cannon. This was my first time beating the original Metroid, and this game was a pain in the ass. In a usual 80s game sense, it is very cryptic without a guide. A lot of level layouts was so repetitive that it was a pain to navigate anywhere. The game is fine without a guide, but more so than any other game of this time that you would also need a guide for, using it takes a lot away from the game. You can play it without one and it's just hard and frustrating, but if you use it, that takes away from what makes Metroid Metroid. It's still a decent game regardless. It's definitely dated, and it's the worst Metroid game I've played. The game was fun all the way through except for the final boss, which sucked. Just getting to Mother Brain was frustrating, the constant circles and the other projectiles hitting you and knocking you off the platform, and the barrier you have to shoot that will replenish if you stop hitting it for just a second. I remember having trouble with this boss in Zero Mission, but not nearly as bad as this. I like this game, but it's not really worth it to play. Just go play the remake Zero Mission instead. This was better than the first Metroid, but not by a whole lot. This game has an actual goal instead of wandering around aimlessly, which was to kill all of the Metroids. The task can get repetitive with the 30 plus Metroids to kill, and the first 2 phases are really easy to beat. The game controls much better than the original. You can now shoot downward and crouch. The camera is way too far zoomed in, but that wasn't that big of an issue. The game suffers from the repetitive layout and pain in the ass to navigate Syndrome 2. This is also the darkest feeling Metroid, in a literal sense with the Game Boy's limited graphics. The game leaves a lot to the imagination. The remake does an excellent job with this game, and I recommend playing that over the original any day. Samus Returns loses that dark atmosphere that the original had, but that's okay. Like the original Metroid, there's not much of a reason to play this over the remake, but I still enjoyed it. After playing this, I did prefer this game to Life is Strange 1, but going back after, I don't know, months, I did actually prefer the first one a lot more. I think the characters and story is much more interesting and memorable, though I think the gameplay is definitely better in this game, and I like how you're not stuck at just the school the entire time. It's more of an adventure, which I do prefer, but ultimately the story is just kind of bleh, and it's not written the best. I like how much more the gameplay is expanded except for the time travel mechanic, which I did love. I think the two brothers are pretty compelling. The story of this game is just they go from place to place. I think the story is better than Life is Strange 1 and how it develops, and Life is Strange 2 can get repetitive with how it's structured. They go somewhere new, something goes down, they leave. There really isn't any build up or payoff for the events. What I like most about this game is how every decision actually matters much more. There are multiple endings, and it's not just a simple decision you make at the end of the game. The game is more so Daniel's story through the eyes of Sean. Sean makes a decision at the end, but Daniel plays a big part as well. I got the Daniel captured, Sean escapes ending. Both brothers have pretty good character arcs. It's complicated how their relationship isn't perfect, and it is very strained at points, but they do feel like real brothers. Solid game that's just about as good as Kirby's Adventure. I don't think that's that much of a compliment because this game is as good as the original and maybe a bit better, I guess, but it doesn't do much to prove on it. Kirby's Adventure is one of the best NES games, but Nightmare in Dreamland is on the Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy Advance can do so much better. Sure, I think Amazing Mirror isn't much better compared to this game, but that game tries something new and innovates that unfortunately wasn't done more. This game is pretty cookie cutter Kirby. This game is really fun. It's a solid basic Kirby. I love the final boss. It's easy but really cool. It's a really good remake of a really good game, yet not much else. Definitely better than Mega Man 1. The controls are much smoother and feel much better. Levels are designed better and have much better presentation. It's the same basic game, but overhauled to a much better experience. Everything is just cooler. Bosses felt harder than the first, but they didn't have an exhausting amount of health. I chose the normal difficulty, and I didn't know if it was the game's easy mode, but it felt much easier than the first game. The final stage 2 was much more enjoyable. I didn't care for the boss rush near the end. I don't really like boss rushes in general. I find them repetitive and boring. Honestly, I like this better than Mega Man 2, mainly for the fact of Proto Man. He doesn't amount to much other than a lore drop, but I always thought he was cool. His boss fights were kinda lame though, and he wasn't even mentioned by name until the credits, but whatever. Some of the stages I thought were cooler than Mega Man 2's. I like the final 4 Robot Masters. Fighting the previous game's bosses was cool, but this made that boss rush even more annoying than the previous games. The Yellow Devil Mark II was a lot more enjoyable than the first game's fight. The Wily Machine number 3 kinda sucked, and the Gamma fight was okay and easy. I've finally gotten around to playing the first Pokemon game in its entirety, and I'm surprised how much I liked it. It's very archaic and has serious issues, but I had a lot of fun with it. The game can be pretty glitchy, and a lot doesn't make sense with the type weaknesses and resistances. There aren't any of those quality of life features that the following games have. The absolute worst thing is the PC and the bag limitations. The bag has limited storage, so there was a lot of storing items in the PC, and when that got full, tossing and selling. The Pokemon PC is a pain. It's not easy to navigate, and not being able to catch a Pokemon because the box is full is the worst thing imaginable. I'm extra pissed off about this because I had this happen while trying to catch Moltres. Aside from the datedness of the game, it's solid. Kanto, Gen 1 and all of its Pokemon may be over-favored to death, but there is a reason these games are so revered and started this massive franchise. The battle system is basic and has not evolved much since this, but the catching and collecting and exploration is what makes these games so fun. To me at least. It's such a simple yet well implemented system that even the worst Pokemon games are fun in that way. No matter how good this game is, it's one of the worst Pokemon games in the grand scheme of things. I will say, as of now, I do think this game is better than X and Y, but it's been years since I've played them. Sword and Shield, but that's no surprise, and maybe even Scarlet and Violet, which I did play them when they just came out, which was only a couple of years ago, and I do kind of still feel the same way about them. I didn't talk much about the actual game, but do I really need to? Maybe I'll say more when I eventually play Yellow. This was the first Contra game I've played on its native console of the DS, or rather the 3DS, but close enough. Now this game really irritates me because the Contra games feel really dated by design. They are basically arcade games where they are super hard and have limited continues and send you back to the beginning. That worked better for the third and fourth generations. That's why Contra and Super C are some of the best NES games, and why Alien Wars and Hardcore are great games as well, but this game came out on the DS in 2007, and it feels like the same NES game with admittedly great graphics and a great soundtrack. But anyway, that's how I feel about the game. I played this game on normal difficulty for a bit, but I was having a hard time. I said fuck it and went to easy. The game still kicked my ass! I got to level 5 pretty well, but after getting sent back to level 1, I got really discouraged and decided to just emulate it for save states. Am I a bitch boy who sucked at Contra? Maybe, but I believe this difficulty is so scummy. It would be okay if after the 5 continues you got sent back to the beginning of the level, but nope, all the way back to the beginning of the game. That's bullshit to me. I hate that kind of difficulty that forces you to perfect each section, because if you don't, you get sent back to the beginning and have to memorize each level to mitigate the losses that will affect the rest of the game. It really sucks because the actual game, it's great, it's super fun. Sure, it's hard, but I don't think the actual game is unfair or scummy. I actually really like the difficulty of it. I do think you should be able to keep your power up for at least a few hits, but still. Here's why I'm so pissed off at this game. When I emulated it, I got so discouraged and annoyed, I still chose the easy mode, mainly because I wanted just to get it over with. I got to the end of level 7 and the game said, fuck you for choosing easy mode. It didn't let me finish the game properly. That is bullshit to me. That is bullshit for a game that is already hard enough. I was extra mad because the final levels in all the Contra games are awesome and I love the final bosses. I might go back and play the game on normal, but not today. The actual game is really good, but fuck the live continue system. Fuck sending the player back to the beginning of the game, not to the beginning of the state, but beginning of the whole fucking game, and most of all, fuck Konami. I would have liked this game more if I was able to finish it. Oh, God. There it is again. What is it? Okay, anyway. Sorry. This is a solid Kirby game. There's nothing really that great about the game to me. The switch to 3D graphics was nice, but I think 64 had much more personality. It's been a long ass time since I've played the 3DS games, but I remember them being better than this. This game introduced the Kirby gimmicks, which would be present in every Kirby game since. In this game, it was the big copy abilities, which are copy abilities, but big. They kind of broke the pacing and weren't the funnest to use. Some of these stages later in the game actually had some challenges, but eh. The other dimension bits at the end of the sections were neat. They were also pretty easy until the end, and the Doomer fights got kind of repetitive. I did really like the copy abilities themselves. The new ones were neat enough. I liked Water, Leaf, and Whip. Tornado is kind of fun, but also such a pain. Of the old abilities, I love how Ninja was upgraded. I didn't care for Ninja that much in Superstar, but in this game, it got an overhaul and was one of my favorites to use. The final boss was pretty cool though. I already knew about Magolor, but this fight was really fun. Another fire Contra game. Not as good as Alien Wars in my opinion, but almost just as good. I like the different characters you could choose from and the different endings. The bosses were sick, but I wish there was much more level variety like in previous games. The final boss was awesome as usual, Contra style. The alien cell thing was not the most interesting final boss, but still pretty sick. Yeah, this is great. It's not as good as people say, but it's still a solid experience. I'm not the biggest zombie fan. Sure, they're not zombies, and the concept of the clickers and the infection is cool, plus you're not only fighting clickers and other zombies. The gameplay is good. I played better third-person shooters. The game felt pretty slow to control, and I've always hated over-the-shoulder cameras. As a survival game, it can be pretty fun. I did enjoy it a lot. I do like how you fight normal people, infected runners, clickers, and bloaters. The normal people are still the most dangerous, as they will fight back the most. The bloaters were very troubling at first, but once you got the flamethrower, they were pretty easy. My favorite thing about the game is the setting. The cities and once human populated areas are now overtaken by nature and greenery, and really cool. I do like the post-apocalyptic look to it. The story was fine. I'd say it didn't get that good until the end. It's all about Joel trying to get Ellie to the Fireflies. The people you meet along the way are all alright, but none of them are in the game long enough for me to care about. I liked Tess and Bale early on, but after every side character leaves after an hour, I stopped caring. Joel himself is a good character. He is very closed off and toughened after 20 years in this hell. He doesn't want to deal with Ellie and he is reluctant to take her. Joel lost his daughter 20 years ago and he struggles with that now that he is looking after Ellie. I don't really like Ellie. She is annoying and bratty, but to be fair, she acts like a 14-year-old. She butts heads with Joel and they get on each other's nerves. The real beauty of this game comes from the relationship. In a sense, they reverse roles. Joel relies on Ellie towards the end. I still don't like Ellie, but I like their arcs. I actually really like the ending. It's a big moral dilemma and it shows how Joel's character has actually changed. It's not cut and dry whether the Fireflies are right or if Joel is right. In this case, Ellie was being used as a means to an end, but she would have saved the human race. It's a complex and interesting ending. This game was actually really solid. Just like 3D Land, 3D World is just a 2D Mario in 3D. Unlike 3D Land, this game is much more interesting and fun. The game does so much more with its design and it's much more fleshed out. There are way more unique levels with fun gimmicks. The cat suit was really fun. It's definitely one of my favorite power-ups. The double cherry was alright. I like the concept and it's fun in some levels, but most of the time it's really just annoying. The Captain Toad stages were fun but really slow. I haven't played the Captain Toad game, but I hope the stages are a little faster and more fleshed out. The challenge stages are alright. They were kind of fun and hard. I really like the amusement park theme going on too. I like the train stages and the amusement park world. I wish more of the game leaned into that more. I like that it was the final world and not the usual lava land. The bosses range from the usual boring boom boom and pow pow to some new and interesting ones. I really like the Bowser fights. Him in the car was neat and the final chase with him was pretty easy but really fun. There are the bonus worlds too, and they are neat. Some of the levels were really annoying and some are hard. I enjoyed playing them all though. I haven't played the World Crown yet because I don't really feel like getting everything in the game. Hell yes. I was expecting this game to be just as good if not better than Sonic Adventure 1, and now it is my favorite Sonic game. This game features 3 main stories, the Hero, Dark, and Last. Last being the true ending. The Hero story you play as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. The Dark you play as Shadow, Eggman, and Rouge. This is fun and great and implemented better than the separate character stories from Adventure 1. My issue is namely there aren't enough Sonic and Shadow stages. They have the best stages in their respective stories, but they just aren't enough. The dark characters are basically the same as the heroes. Sonic and Shadow play the same, Tails and Eggman play the same, and Knuckles and Rouge play the same. They're all fun and you don't have to deal with characters like Amy or Big the Cat. The Tails and Eggman stages are basically the Gamma stages from Adventure 1, so Tails is different. While the Sonic and Shadow stages were always a blast, and the Tails and Eggman stages were fun too, the Knuckles and Rouge stages were a pain, honestly. I didn't really like them, and I found them harder and less fun than Knuckles from Adventure 1. The story was pretty great and easily the best Sonic story without a doubt. Shadow's character is great. He is compelling as an antagonist and a rival. His backstory is interesting as well as the backstory with Maria and Eggman's grandfather. I do miss having the hub world from Adventure 1, but I do think everything else is great in this game. Best Sonic game and a must-play. It took way too long to play this game, but it was worth it. I'm not much of a fan of hack and slashers, so I was a bit put off by this game, but I'm really glad I finally got around to playing it. It's very Metal Gear Solid-like in how the game operates, how enemies behave, and how the story is being told. The game is somewhat a stealth game, but it's not as fluent as a mainline MGS game. It's way more focused on hacking and slashing. I don't have many other games to compare it to in this regard, but the gameplay was fun as hell. It's a blast to run around and slice and dice enemies. The blade mode is so smooth. The game can be very hard at times. Even simple enemies take forever to kill. This game gets pretty annoying because if you don't rip people's spines out, then you will be there for a bit, and when there are hordes of enemies later in the game, it gets really tough. The bosses, way more so. The Razor Dog took me a bit because it was so early on and it forced me to get good at the game and with the controls. Miss Stroll was the only easy boss because you got her little robots that dropped healing items. The rest of the bosses will kick your ass. One thing that really gets on my nerves is both you and the bosses will have a percentage of health, but your attacks will do minimal percentages like 1% or less, and they can literally kill you in a few attacks. Sometimes it's a struggle even landing one attack, while sometimes they will do multiple attacks at once without you being able to dodge. It is a hard-ass game and sometimes it feels unfair, but it's always rewarding beating each boss. The game focuses on Raiden. Raiden is awesome. He has changed a lot since Sons of Liberty. He is such a great character and he's one of the best in the series. The story is very similar to any MGS story with the evil terrorists and government conspiracy. There's a lot of talk about PMCs and the Patriots, plus a lot about cyborgs, child soldiers, and everything with Raiden. Senator Armstrong is a great villain. He is intimidating but awesome. He seems grounded as just a politician, but he is literally insane. The nanomachines are so cool, and he has one of my favorite MGS villain abilities. His talk about rebuilding the nation is pretty damn truthful. The game isn't that old by any means, and it's not as shocking as the Sons of Liberty media and AI speech, but the game's themes still ring true very heavily. I do think most of the mainline MGS games are better than this, but this is an awesome game that I would love to see a sequel done. Only with Kojima and Platinum Games, though.
We will send unto them.
Fuck yes. This game is awesome. Doom 2016 was great, but this is even better. There are so many new mechanics and equipment, new gameplay elements, new everything. This game is more fun than ever, but it was much harder too. You felt so powerful going through the game and getting more upgrades. I don't know if it was just me, but I found way more of the collectibles and upgrades than in Doom 2016. I got almost every single one in this game. I also love the hub world. It's so cool to unlock things from the ship and view what you found. The story is nothing special, but it's engaging. I love the variety of areas too, instead of just Hell and Mars. Each mission felt pretty new for the most part. The game never got dull. A big gripe I have near the end of the game is that it was just horde after horde and it got kind of boring. The final boss is awesome, but there were so many fucking enemies that you could barely pay any attention to the actual boss. You could barely pay any attention to anything there sometimes. There was just so much going on, it was hard to see. I'm also pretty disappointed with the sword. I was hoping you'd get to actually use it more, but it was just a insta-kill limited use item with select ammo. It could have been awesome to go around slicing demons. Obviously it wouldn't have been insta-kill then. This is a game I've wanted to play for more than a decade now, and I finally played it and I loved it. The first two Kid Icarus games are alright, but this one blows them out of the water. It's so sad that we'll probably never get a Kid Icarus game again because this one is so good. I would love to see a new game on the Switch too, or at least a remake of this game, and if that does well, ideally, then a new game. I won't get my hopes up and I'll just be happy with this game. It's vastly different from the first two games. This is a rail shooter and a third-person shooter. Each chapter has two sections, the first being the rail shooter section and the second is the on-land third-person shooter sections. It does get kind of repetitive because nearly every level follows this formula. Sometimes it's slightly different, sometimes it's the other way around. The rail shooter part is simple, you fly around and shoot. It's simple but really fun. It's awesome to just fly and shoot. The on-land parts can be a little less fun. Controlling Pit is not that fluent. He can be really hard to control for precise movements, but you usually don't need to do that. Unless you move slowly, he will dash when he runs, so it can be easy to fall off ledges. Sometimes ledges are blocked where you can't fall off, and sometimes you can. It's inconsistent and weird. Also, Pit can't jump, so when you need to, you have to run on a jump pad. This is usually okay, but when you need to jump to dodge boss attacks, it's frustrating and nearly impossible to use precisely. To address the elephant in the room, yes, there are touch controls. Now, the game is frustrating to play because it can hurt your hand. Yes, as a lefty, it sucks holding the stylus with my right hand, but that being said, it actually works pretty well. Aiming with the touchscreen is smooth and precise. It's not the most comfortable, and I could not play the game for more than maybe 2 chapters before getting uncomfortable. Chapters range from 20 to 30-ish minutes. I do think the controls work well, and it's not a deal breaker at all. The game has a great cast of characters. It pretty much writes them from scratch since there was little to go off of from the first 2 games. There is a lot of dialogue in the game. I mean, every chapter has almost constant banter going on. I would normally hate this, but the dialogue is great and witty, so it's always fun to listen to. It does so much to flesh out these characters. At the time of writing this, I'm in the middle of playing It Takes Two, and that game has constant dialogue and it's not good, so it's just so annoying in that game. Just wanted to throw in a quick complaint. A funny thing is, the dialogue between Pit and Palutena and the villains, it's so funny having them just banter. Every character is so well written, even the ones who appear in one chapter. The game has an interesting story too. It's not the main focus, so it's not the most fluent. It starts out as, let's go kill Medusa, then, oh no, Hades was behind Medusa, let's stop Viridi, then, oh no, aliens are attacking, then, oh no, let's save Palutena, then, oh no, let's go kill Hades. It's just kind of weirdly laid out, but it's not that big of an issue. I also love the presentation and look of the game. Each stage looks so unique and interesting. Some of my favorite chapters are the Aurum ones. The enemies are so weird and cool. I love the look of them and their lair. It's all really, really cool. I don't really recommend the first 2 Kid Icarus games, even though Uprising makes a lot of references to them, but this game is honestly a must play. You know, I might actually be lightening up on first-person shooters. It's still an overdone genre nowadays, but after playing 2 of the best first-person shooters this year, and now one of the classics of the genre, I love these games. This game is so cool. I love the environment of the research facility and the military base. I love how the game develops from a simple experiment gone wrong to this whole conspiracy. It's interesting how you fight these aliens at first, then you just fight people too. The military are trying to cover it up, and Gordon Freeman is just being a threat. I love the ending. That whole space level was awesome. It looked awesome. The ending with that weirdo dude was interesting. It makes me excited to play Half-Life 2. The game was really fun. Exploring and shooting was a blast. I like the weird alien guns you get later on. The only parts I didn't care for was On a Rail and the final area, gameplay wise. On a Rail was kind of just a pain to get through. That big ass fucking alien who would shoot fire at you was irritating. The final area, like I said, looked so awesome. I love the design of it, but it's mostly platforming, and this game is slippery as hell to control. The controls were not meant for platforming, and it shows. Also, the enemies were dialed up to 11. The rest of the game, I didn't mind the aliens because they were less of a threat than the military, but there is so much going on in this final level. I hated that spider boss, and especially its tiny spider head crabs that are so hard to hit. The floating big head aliens are the worst enemies in the game. Such an irritation. The rest of the game was great. It still holds up to this day. I love the scientists. They are so cute. I just wanted to send them out in danger. They're a meme nowadays, and for a good reason. They're just so memorable and funny. The dialogue is just so great. I do like how the game makes Black Mesa feel lived in, and it shows that a lot of people work there. There's plenty of scientists and guards you'll meet and kill. I was really excited to play this game, but I really didn't know much about it aside from haha funny fog. It's genuinely a great experience. The horror aspect is unmatched in any other game I've played. The lower quality PS1 graphics do it favors in making it harder to tell what's going on and making the player fill the gaps with their own mind, something modern graphics can't achieve. The gameplay is alright. It's honestly not that great, but it's not the main focus. As a survival horror, it aces it. I love the atmosphere of the town, how scary it feels at first, then you are thrown into this other world that looks utterly disgusting. You start to miss the beginning of the game. The soundtrack, if you could really call it that, is perfect for the game. Is it actually good? Debatable, but I like it for what it is. It's terrifying during the game, the dark ambience and industrial banging. It's amazing. There are a couple more musical tracks that I would actually listen to outside the game, and I love them. The enemies are what the main horror comes from. They are so unsettling and gross, especially the children-looking ones in the school. They had to change them to less kid-looking enemies in other versions of the game. They can become a nuisance more than anything at times, but whatever. Just the presence of them makes the game scary. I like that there was variety though. The birds were fucking annoying and how they fly away so you can't see where they attack from, and the dogs and monkey ones that just pounce at you. The imagery of the evil world is also terrifying and amazing. Bodies and blood everywhere. The pacing felt like a bit of an issue for me later in the game. I liked how it was going at first with the town, and then the school, and then more town, and then the hospital. Then after that, you kind of just go all over the place in between the worlds, and you don't stay anywhere too long. It's not a bad thing, and there wasn't a part that I didn't like, but I did really like traversing the school and finding clues and whatnot. The end of the game was also so cool. The last area felt more unnerving with the lack of a map. Sure, it was all repeated worlds from the game before, but it made it feel more otherworldly and so tense not knowing what to expect. The final boss was pretty sick, and the ending was good, but did not satisfy the mystery of the town to me. What a beautiful game. This was the first real open world Zelda game. Though the story and progression is linear, you have this vast open ocean to explore. I love sailing through the sea. I do wish there were bigger islands because there is a lot to see, but many of the islands were very sparse. Sometimes it could get boring if you're just sailing in one direction to an island, but there's still secrets to find and the charts to complete. I think this game is one of the best versions of Link and Ganondorf. Link is just funny how he interacts with other characters. Ganondorf is the only version of the character who isn't pure evil. He just wants Hyrule back, and that's not so bad. There are only 5 main dungeons, but each one is so cool. I especially like the Temple of the Gods and the Earth Temple. The Triforce quest was a bit of a drag, but getting the charts was at least fun. It was an unnecessary actual step to go to Tingle and then fish for each actual shard. I would be a lot more pissed off if I didn't have enough money to pay Tingle. You need over 3,000 rupees, and I had like 20 more than I needed. The climax of this game is one of the best in the series. Ganondorf is such a interesting character, and I really liked his speech in the end. The puppet Ganon fight was alright, but the actual Ganondorf fight was awesome. It was genuinely hard, but I like how it really tests you on the combat of the game, which the combat being the best improvement over the N64 3D Zeldas. I am so glad this game lived up to the hype. This is easily one of the greatest games I've ever played. I'm already a big Metroid fan, so I was so excited getting into the Metroidvania, Castlevania games. I love the style and aesthetic of Castlevania, even though the older games may be very dated. I love vampires and this time period. The game is a non-linear 2D platformer like Metroid, but with RPG elements like leveling, items, and stats. It's all awesome. Exploring the castle is a blast. There are always new rooms and new things to discover. In typical Metroidvania fashion, you get a giddy feeling when you get an ability that lets you access a place you passed. This game is a little more accessible than most Metroid games, I think. It's pretty easy to traverse the castle and find places you've been to. There are a lot of save rooms and teleporter rooms. The game is a lot easier than any previous Castlevania game by a long shot. It's a completely different game, but still, most bosses are not too hard at all. I did as much in the game as I could find, and I ended the game with 197%, so there weren't many moments that were challenging for me. Richter was a bit hard at first until I tried a few more times and beat him. Some of the bosses and enemies were actually pretty hard in the inverted castle, but not the end of the world. I was worried about the game only taking place in the castle, but each location was unique and interesting. Even the inverted castle kept things really fresh, though a lot harder and more annoying to traverse. When I beat Richter, I was almost disappointed that that was the end of the game, but I was relieved that it wasn't over. Even when I beat the final boss, I wouldn't have minded playing more. I would definitely love to beat the game to completion. The gameplay was really smooth and fast. The old Castlevanias are pretty slow and clunky compared to this game. Alucard moves so nicely. I always enjoyed finding new items, weapons, and armor. You never feel stuck in the game because it's easy to tell where you've been and where else you can go. There are a lot of hidden rooms, but even then, they aren't too hidden at times. Aside from the clock tower thing with the rings and the clock sub-weapon that were a bit hidden, there was no point I was lost. I do think this is one of the best video game experiences I've ever had. The game was a blast, front to back. It's way better than any previous Castlevania game, and it is a must play. Okay, so that's the list. Yeah. Sorry for my disturbance. I'm not really sure what's going on. I don't know. I need to go to a doctor or something. Yeah. So that's the games. More games than the past couple years. A lot, better games. This was a pretty interesting year. I played a lot of really cool, interesting, and great games that I have enjoyed and that I think you guys should play as well. So stay tuned for the next fucking video next fucking week.